Hi, I'm Hannah Foster, and this is my Educational Giant Report on John Dewey. John Dewey was born in Burlington, Vermont in 1859 to a family that wasn't very high in society. His father was the town grocer, which wasn't a very prestigious job, but it wasn't humiliating either. The majority of the parental influence that he experienced in his life came from his mother. She instilled in him religious beliefs and ideas when he was a young child, which he adhered to and followed throughout his childhood and adolescence. He would eventually abandon those beliefs for other things and other reasons in his life. Eventually, he would go to graduate high school and go on to receive a college education from the University of Vermont, where he would graduate, and then he eventually began teaching high school, which he did for a few years, but he really didn't enjoy teaching high school. He was very disappointed by the experience, and he found that that wasn't the job for him. So instead, he went back to receive his PhD from Johns Hopkins University, and from there, he began a long road of discovery and influence in the fields of psychology, philosophy, education, social criticism, and political activism. Those were all things that he spent his life studying, and he tried to promote his ideas in these fields, and he wrote many books to promote his ideas. Many of John Dewey's beliefs about education and philosophies actually came from Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution, which was relatively new around that time. John Dewey was very impacted by the ideas that Charles Darwin presented about evolution, and this was what eventually made him desert his religious beliefs that he had been taught as a child by his mother, and he became an agnostic because of this. He replaced his religious convictions with a firm belief in the use of the scientific method and in the idea that experience determines truth. He was very pragmatic in his views in life, and as a result, he actually came to be known as one of the founders of the philosophy of pragmatism, which is the idea that knowledge is very subjective and is personal, and it's based solely on one's own experiences. Along with pragmatism comes progressivism, which John Dewey also promoted. He was a promoter of progressive education, especially. He implemented the and advocated classrooms that encouraged experiment and learning through experience. He also believed in hands-on learning and interactive learning. He believed that learning should be active and not restrictive, and that teachers should not be authoritarian in their classrooms. Not only did John Dewey make contributions through the promotions of his ideas of progressivism, but he also contributed to the field of psychology through his theory of functional psychology, and he was also a supporter of behaviorism. John Dewey has had many contributions in our society today through, we can see this through educational philosophies now that are greatly influenced by John Dewey's progressivism. Schools are much more interactive, and active learning is promoted far more than it used to be. We can see this through the use of the scientific method in schools a lot, which isn't only used in science, but also in the idea that students need to question and search for answers and predict what may happen. It's been interesting to me to learn about John Dewey and his ideas about progressivism. I agree with his philosophy on active learning. I think that active learning really helps cement ideas into students' minds. It helps with true learning rather than just cramming facts into a student's head. which also has its place in some cases, which is where I partially disagree with John Dewey. But for the most part, I agree with many of his philosophies, and it's been interesting to learn about the great influence that he has had on our education today. And this has been my educational giant report on John Dewey. Thank you for watching.